Welcome you to this presentation. Welcome you to the presentation. This is a slaughter trailer presentation. On behalf of the Esdilagh First Nation, I welcome you to this. Give me a second here. All right, let's try this again. So my name is Kimberley Paul. I am the Indigenous Food Sovereignty Manager at the Esdilagh First Nation. Why is this work and so important to me? I'd like to add onto Callista's prayer and start today off in a good way with a prayer for all of you and the good work that you do. Creator, I ask you to bring wealth through health back to our Indigenous people. I ask you to bless these individuals and the projects that they're dedicated to. This work is important, and I thank you for watching us over us today and in the work that we do. Miigwech, thank you. I'm Kimberley Paul, and I was born and raised in Williams Lake in the beautiful Secwepemculecw territory, in the territory of the Esketemc First Nation. My family has lived in this territory since the 50s, despite originally immigrating on my dad's side from the Netherlands and on my mom's side from the United States. My mom's family is from the White Earth Nation. We are Shinaabe people. She and her siblings were left in Canada through 60 Scoop when her mom was deported back to the United States. This is who I am. This work that I do, I was born and raised on a farm right here in Williams Lake. I've always been very fortunate to be working on the land with plants and animals. I'm a foodie at heart. Everything I do is about producing good food that tastes good, that's nutritious, and that nourishes both the health and the soul of those around me. My kind of designations in food include food safe, which is a basic level for cooking in a kitchen or cooking for your family. I also have a process safe certificate. This allows me to be a manager or an operator of a butcher shop, a restaurant, or a bakery. I am currently in the process of getting the slaughter right designation, which is the provincial government certification to go along with the slaughter training and to operate the slaughter trailer. So while I'm not quite there yet, we're getting really close. One of the roadblocks that stood in our way was funding for some of the equipment that we needed to operate the trailer. And that's no longer a roadblock. Thank you to this beautiful organization called iSpark and the funding that they've delivered over the last year through the food systems programs to our community. So once again, we're grateful and I'm thankful. Pictured here are my husband and my children, my family, these 5 individuals and myself, my 5 horses, my dog, our new 4-H beef, our chickens, my beautiful garden. It's the reason I do this work. This work is good for my soul. It feeds and nourishes my family. And these people, the community that I work for is the reason I do this work. Our children are watching us and we need to be good examples. Not only are we building a future at home, but we're building this future in the community as well. And it's going to benefit our children and our community for years to come.
Hey, Kim, sorry to interrupt you. I am guessing that you are running through slides right now and we are not seeing them.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let me try this again.
Please, we would love to see the picture of your family.
Okay, let me get back to this because I was sharing screen. Let's try this again. There we go. Is that better?
Yes. And then
Yes.
if you can just put
Okay.
it in slideshow mode, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, so
Look
we're
at
actually
that.
there now. My slides are in order. I'm glad you cut it in there because it would have been pretty boring to just listen to me talk through this presentation and not be able to see the content that I've actually prepared for you, because the content helps to speak for the project. So yeah, this is who I am. This is why I do the work that I do. And here's a little bit of information about the community that I work for. So Esdilagh First Nation is a strong, unified nation. Their territory is located between Quesnel and Williams Lake on both sides of the Fraser River. The reserve lands offer a vast agriculture spaces, including former hayfields. We have, mixed forest, kind of high alpine forest. Like I said, these grasslands down by the river. We have a really beautiful space to work and live in. However, as a remote community, food sovereignty is important. And this slaughter trailer is one way we can help achieve our goals of being food sovereign in the community. As you can see in the map here, I'm just to the right of the pinpoint that says Chief Frank Joe Health Center. So this is where I work most of the time. Right behind the health center, we have a community garden there. And the kitchen that I use for processing everything out of the garden for cooking the community luncheons is right in this building. So when you look at that map, you've got the red pinpoint, and then you kind of can look off to the right of that, and you'll see a couple gray masses. So our community sits right below Gibraltar Mine. One of our IRs actually is like literally right against the mine. So I guess where is this conversation leading? Our territory has been affected by the development in various ways and has forever changed the life of our people. These changes started during the fur trade with Fort Alexandria right in our community. Fort Alexandria operated on both the east and the west side of the river, right in the community of Esdilagh First Nation. And it continues today. We have a lot of large industry in our area, including this mine that I've showed you right up against our IR. These commercial agriculture, forestry, mining have forever changed the landscape and the outcome. Some of our traditional foods or traditional medicines have been affected by this. So taking on more of an agriculture project for our community on our land is a very important project and one that our community is working through and going to, I feel, really be successful with. So what are we doing in terms of food sovereignty? So food sovereignty at Esdilagh First Nation, this is where we've started. Prior to my start with Esdilagh First Nation in March, as I shared during my intro, my husband and my children are members. So I have a vested interest in this community, and I really want to see them succeed. I want to see our community be healthy through good, nourishing foods, but also be food sovereign. And wouldn't it be great if we can throw some economic development in there and get some jobs happening for people? And that's exactly what my plan is through food sovereignty at Esdilagh First Nation. So we currently have Fraser River Meats. This is a butcher shop that was located in downtown Quesnel, right beside our band office. And we purchased this building and are under the process of completely renovating it and setting it up with new equipment. When this is complete, we will be hosting a butcher training to train butchers both for our operation as well as anybody else that wants to get into the butcher field. So we're currently looking at setting up the butcher training with Jobs BC. And so that training should be available to everyone and anyone when we set that up. In addition to this, we have the slaughter trailer, which this presentation is going to be about. We have a community garden where we are growing herbs, vegetables, fruit, and processing that back into the community as well as feeding the community. We have done both preservation, slaughter, and butcher training. The butcher training is in process, and we've done a small butcher training, which I'll tell you more about through this presentation. So what is a slaughter trailer? So this is just kind of a screenshot pulled off the website where we purchased the slaughter trailer from. The slaughter trailer is equipped with the necessary goods to provide a human food grade slaughter, refrigeration, and transportation of livestock carcasses. As said before, the slaughter trailer is for exactly that, food grade slaughter, refrigerated transportation for livestock. So this isn't a piece of equipment that we're going to bump out into the bush and go take moose hunting or deer hunting, for multiple reasons. Number one, this is a very expensive piece of equipment. As you can see on the price tag there, that's 65,000 USDA. So landed in Canada with all the taxes, fees, levies, everything, we paid approximately $126,000 for this unit. When certified through the provincial government, this unit is specifically set up for beef, sheep, and swine. So by mixing game into this cooler, we can potentially taint the cooler, and then the unit would not be good under provincial legislation for using it for our beef, our swine, and our hogs. So I'm not saying that if another community wanted a unit like this, that they couldn't use it like that. Our community is not allowed to use it like that because we're in the process of getting set up for that food grade slaughter. And specifically within the license that we're applying for, it's for beef, swine, and hogs. So what is included in this trailer? And I'm really sorry, I was so busy participating in these slaughter trainings that I didn't get a lot of great pictures. And despite my kids' 4-H photography career, they also didn't take great pictures for me. This unit is essentially a pull behind trailer. As you can see, our unit is 12 feet long with a bumper, with an 8-foot ceiling. So there is the refrigerator compartment. So the whole inside of the unit is refrigerated. It's fiberglass. So while the unit itself is actually quite heavy, the construction of it is not, which is good because once we add beef carcasses, swine, sheep to this, it gets heavier. Because we're bumping along, dirt roads, coming in and out of farms, hauling this unit down the highway. It's got good tires on it and it's got a good load rate on those axles. The refrigerator unit is a good quality unit, but also a high refrigerator unit. So we have the capacity to bring these carcasses down to temperature in the time that needs to happen so that we're operating within a food safe way. The electricity is operated by a commercial generator. Our unit has a Honda generator, gas generator, which in my opinion, if you can get one with a diesel generator, I think it would be a little bit more fuel efficient and a little bit more economical to run. So there is a battery system on, and the generator charges the battery system. So for example, the winches and a few of the other items on the trailer can actually run when the batteries are charged without the generator running. There is a 100-gallon freshwater tank and a whole process for filling that tank, through our guidelines with the provincial government. That needs to be filled with potable water. And for example, if I'm not using a municipal source of water, City of Quesnel, City of Lake, then my water needs to be tested. There is a on-demand hot water heater. So I have both hot water and cold water taps on the outside of this, including frost-free attachments in the front compartments, so that we can operate this unit year-round. On the back of the unit, you'll see in this picture, we have the two cranes. So there is a roof-mounted crane with a hydraulic lift. So it actually lifts up quite high in the air. I think the lift is about 12 feet. And then it has a winch on it that can help bring the animal up and down. And then on the other side, there's the swinging crane and with the hydraulics. So this one can move from right up against, the side of the trailer, right around to the back. And the nice thing about this is the two winches could be used against each other to kind of like stretch the carcass out so you can get into the areas a little bit better. It puts it in a nice space for you to work on so that the ergonomics are there. So we're not, always constantly on the ground trying to get that skin off, trying to cut around those legs, trying to get the guts out. We can get that unit nice and high. We can move it as we need to up and down. And then the winches. So they're rated for 8,000 pounds. We're not going to probably deal with an animal that's 8,000 pounds. I really don't want to go there. There is a set of stainless steel trolleys, and essentially, and then also the stainless steel rail and hangers. So think of that as like your meat rail. So there's a picture a little bit later in the presentation where we actually have two hogs hanging on the rails. And you'll see it's essentially a hook, and then you can put it on the rail and you can slide it kind of all around inside. So the rail system is a way of moving the heavy carcasses in the butcher shop without actually having to pack them. We can hook them in a hock. We can hook them in a spot in the meat or in the carcass, and we can slide these large carcasses to where we need to do this. So like I said, this unit costs us at Esdilagh First Nation approximately 126,000. You can see pictured in the picture here, there's like a stainless steel piece of equipment on the ground. It looks like it's made out of tubing. So that's actually a piece of equipment that we purchased extra on top of the trailer unit. And this is called a beef cradle. And what this is for is after you've gutted the animal, then we're going to lay the beef kind of back on its back. And this just allows a space for it to sit up off the ground. Once again, ergonomics, so that we're not completely working on the ground. Food safety, we're keeping the animal off the ground. And we lay this there so that we can skin the inner of the animal. So I think this slide is a bit of a repeat, but it's what is the use of the food slaughter trailer? And like we've talked about that a little bit before. This is a trailer that helps us provide a humane food grade slaughter to both our community, and then as well, we can work with other farmers in our local community to slaughter for them as well. And we'll get into some more details about that when we go on to the next slide. Just some key points again, looking at our system. So on the left of this picture, you can see that there's a bit of a fence set up there. So this is the area where our animals would be waiting for us to come in and do kind of the first part of the slaughter, which is the stun or the kill. And so while they're in there, we're in our process, in our training through the provincial government, we're trying to do this in the most humane way possible. So number one, we're trying to keep the animals nice and relaxed, try not to get too much excitement. So we're not chasing them, we're not hitting them, we're not, causing any damage to them in any way. So just trying to keep everything nice and calm. When we go to do the actual kill or the stun, we use something called a captive bolt gun. And each animal kind of has a point between its ears and its eyes where it's the easiest point to brain dead the animal or to stun the animal. And that is the most humane way. This is the way that we've been taught to do this through the provincial training. So I think in this picture, we're just setting up the stun gun to start this process. So this is kind of what it looks like, all fresh and just kind of ready to go. So once we've stunned that animal, then we're gonna cut its throat and we're gonna let it bleed out, and then we're gonna lift it up and we're gonna start the gutting process. So going right into training, how do we get here? How do you become licensed? So attached is a picture of the farm gate and the farm gate plus slaughter right manual. This is the legislated training through the provincial government. And I'm just going to take you to their website for a second. And so you can see on here, there's various links about all of the questions that you could possibly think of asking about the farm gate license. So the farm gate license is for somebody who's just slaughtering on their own. The farm gate plus license is what we are applying for in Esdilagh First Nation. So we can slaughter our own animals, but so we can also work with other farmers and slaughter their animals as well. So just going back here. Second. So just going back to the training. So the slaughter rate training manual provides all the necessary information to complete the workbook, which is part of the application process through the provincial government. This information will help you create and set up standard operating procedures for each species, including post-mortem inspections, fit for transportation, sanitizing procedures, and everything that you need to do to satisfy the provincial government through the process. So we set up just a book that looks like this. It is, I don't know if you can actually see this. I hope you can. So we've just got a big binder that goes along with the slaughter trailer. And inside here are all of the different SOPs that we've created for the slaughter trailer. So this is all in line with the provincial government's regulations. These standard operating procedures for each animal, for each part of the process, are part of the process of applying for this government application. So each one of these standard operating procedures are tailored to, for example, post-mortem inspections for the animal we're slaughtering. And each animal has a little bit different post-mortem inspection. There is sanitizing processes for my trailer, sanitizing processes for my water system in my trailer. There is like a standard operating procedure on how to slaughter each animal. So your beef, your sheep, your hogs. Yeah, so water systems, each animal, cleaning the trailer and sanitizing the trailer itself, refrigeration, so getting that animal refrigerated and getting it down to temperature. So we have checklists and spreadsheets with all of this information on it. And for every slaughter that we do, we need to record all of this information. So what's involved in kind of setting up your farm gate or farm gate plus license? So the first thing we need to do is we need to get a BC, sorry, I lost the term for it. It is a property ID. There we go. A premise ID. So a premise ID is the provincial governments, the provincial and federal government, I should say, way of understanding exactly where you're farming. So they'll give you, for example, we live in BC. They give you BC and then a number behind it. And it's usually 4 to 6 numbers. And that is kind of your location that you're actually farming at. And this system regulates back to multiple different things. So, for example, we slaughtered hogs through our training, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But there's a swine trace. So the swine trace um, starts right when the hog is born, and it's traced all the way through my slaughter and right to where it's going. So maybe we are selling to a butcher shop, so it's traced right to that butcher shop location. Maybe the end user is me and my family. It's traced right to my family. So all of the slaughter that we do of all of the animals, whether they be on our farm or for another farmer, we need to have all of this regulated information all the way through. So the property ID number, the swine number. So each swine will actually have a number. And we report these movements. So, for example, we're slaughtering for somebody else. They would go log into their swine trace and they would say, swine number A, B, and C are moving from my premise ID to Esdilagh First Nation's slaughter, premise ID this. And then once I have them, and once I've slaughtered them, then I have a reporting requirement on that side too. It's the same for beef. It's the same for sheep, except for they all have different systems. So there is a swine trace, there's a beef trace, and essentially a way of tracing our food from where we have it today back to its origin in the event of something happening, a foodborne illness, something similar. Okay. Uh-oh. For some reason. Okay. So, humane food grade slaughter legislated by the provincial government. So, in British Columbia, the Farmgate Plus licenses are designed for small producers who want to share their animals or provide limited custom slaughtering for neighboring producers. So, each time that we apply for a license, we need to have our our premise ID attached to our application. And we talked about premise IDs earlier. So for example, if you are on rural property, you own your own property, your premise ID is going to be related to your property identification number that you would see on like your taxes. But if you're setting up a farm on reserve land like we did, we actually just use our IR numbers. So for example, in Esdilagh First Nation, we have 10 separate IRs, and we have the potential, while it won't work for every one of our IRs, we have the potential to set up to 10 premise IDs. So when you look at production limits, the farm gate license allows up to 25 animal units per compliance year. That's per property ID. So if we were to set up a premise ID on each of our reserve lands, like I said, it's not going to work with all of them. We could potentially, in a perfect world, slaughter up to 250,000 pounds or 10 times the 25,000 pounds per property ID. If that's unclear in any way, please ask me some questions about it after. So selling the meat. So the meat produced in a Farm Gate Plus facility can be sold directly to the consumer at farmers markets and at retail locations through the province. So this is this trailer, this service that we're offering, this slaughter under the Farm Gate Plus license isn't just a benefit to our community to be able to trace the origin of our animal, to see our food as right through the system from when we grow it until when we slaughter it. But it also allows us to help other small scale farmers get their products to market. So that's the benefit of the Plus license versus the Farm Gate license. At the Farm Gate license, you're just doing it for yourself. The Farm Gate Plus license, you're doing it for yourself and you're helping others as well. So custom slaughter. License holders can provide custom slaughtering services for other producers, but these animals count against our own production limit. So again, if we're bringing these animals to our facility, to our IR, to our premise ID, then they count against our own production limit. However, if we're working with a producer that has their own farm gate license, and we can then go to their premise ID with our slaughter trailer, and we can then the allocation of the weight of that animal or the production limit would actually go on their production records, not on ours. We would be then just assisting them in the slaughter. So they're just paying us for a service, and that's not coming out of our Farm Gate Plus license, production limit, or allocation. The application process. So on the previous slide, I showed you the website, the training book. So the training book is quite dry. I'm not going to lie. It was my night story for about a month. I read it every evening before I went to bed, and some evenings it just put me straight to sleep. And I'm coming from a very honest point here. I'm interested in this, and I found it very, very difficult to take in the information and regurgitate it. It's a pretty dry manual. So with that being said, yeah, had I had to just use the training manual to set up my operation and to apply for this license, I don't think that I would have been as successful. But lucky for me, we have something in British Columbia called the Small Scale Meat Producers Association. And we were lucky enough to be included in their hands-on training. So once again, I'm going to take you for a second to their website. This is a very important website if you're looking to get into this type of operation. They have already done all of the hard work for us. They're really, really encouraging and informative. They want more people doing this type of work. So we were lucky enough to get in on the mobile slaughter trailer emergency preparedness granting that they had. And so they came right to us in Esdilagh First Nation and basically showed us how to use our slaughter trailer. You know, this thing arrived from Idaho. Talked to the salesman a few times. They send me a couple little USBs. And I'm like, oh, great. This is all the operational information. We'll be able to figure out how to turn this thing on, and it's going to have everything in there. No, one was a USB about how to hook up a trailer, about how to haul a trailer, about all the dangers associated with hauling a trailer. And the other one had the same PowerPoint presentation, as well as a warranty. So my hands go up to the Small Scale Meat Producers Association and the training that they provided our community. It was just a really gorgeous, beautiful training. We learned so much. I'm part of this family now, which when you get into a food systems family like we all are here today, it's a pretty cool thing because you're surrounded by support. When you have a question, when you have a concern, there's somebody to answer it for you. So I just felt like that was a really, really beneficial partnership, but also really informative, like very well versed. So, like I said, in May, we partnered with the Small Scale Meat Processors Association. We hosted an emergency management slaughter and butcher training for the community. During this time, we butchered 2 hogs for the community. I told you earlier that I'm a foodie. My husband and I have been raising our own animals for quite a number of years. Um, and so I quite often know what kind of cuts I want. Cooking for my or preparing an animal for my family versus preparing my animal for the community was quite a bit different. But not only did I learn a lot more about how to do this, we were also teaching other community members. So, what did we learn? Humane food grade slaughter. So, we talked about this a little bit earlier. The best practice for slaughter to prevent the stress of the livestock and contamination of the carcass. So, together with the team, we put our slaughter trailer to work for the first time. Using the methods taught through the Slaughter Right workbook, the team from the Small Scale Meat Processors Association taught us precision cuts, tips and tricks to make the process more efficient. Each teaching demonstration included the right equipment and the process to meet the food grade regulations. Through our instructors, Matt and James, we were able to determine what knives, aprons, equipment, and sanitizing methods to use, as well as waste management solutions and supplies that we needed to equip the trailer. What tools did we need and how did we use them? So earlier I talked about having a captive bolt gun and ammunition. This is for the actual kill or for the knives. So we use both skinning and boning knives. Knife sharpeners are essential. Having a sharp knife to do this type of work is so important. The team had to keep reminding me, Kim, go sharpen your knife. Kim, you're using a little bit too much force. Go sharpen your knife. If you got a nice clean edge on your knife's going to go through there properly. So labels for tagging the carcasses. We talked earlier about the swine trace and the property ID. So labeling our carcasses before we butcher them is of the utmost importance so we know which animal is which, especially when we're cutting them in half. We need to tag both sides of that carcass. So large waste disposal containers. I ended up starting with kind of some great big huge Rubbermaid containers. I think they were like the 112-liter ones. I found them really tough to move around afterwards. Um, and I ended up setting up a system with a winch to actually, when they were full, to lift them into the back of my truck. Moving forward, we will actually have a waste disposal system right on site for any of the guts or anything like that. A Sawzall with a meat cutting blade. So this is kind of an electric hacksaw, I guess, is essentially. And then the importance of the meat cutting blade. So the meat cutting blade is a stainless steel blade that's food grade. So quite often, if we just went to like the hardware store and we looked for a Sawzall blade, the Sawzall blade oftentimes would not be stainless steel or a food grade, and most times it would actually be covered with paint as well. So that's creating contamination into our meat, right? And we're doing humane food grades. So we want to make sure that all of our equipment that we're using is food grade equipment. So going on to the next point, food grade hoses and fixtures. So I'm running potable water through my water system. I have a standard operating procedure for sanitizing my water. We need to do that in compliance. We need to have food grade hoses and fixtures for our water to come out of so that we're not potentially, again, contaminating the water that we're using to sanitize surfaces with chemicals from non-food grade hoses. So sanitizing equipment, buckets, bleach, washcloth, towels, dish soap, hand soap, sanitizer. So because this is a slaughter trailer and it's mobile, we're moving. We don't, there's no roof, there's no facility around this. So I want you to think about your 3-part kitchen sink. So when we all took food safe, if we don't have a dishwasher, then we have a 3-part kitchen sink. So just like our 3-part kitchen sink, we have kind of 2 systems. We have one for our equipment and we have one for our hands. So we are washing our knives, we are rinsing our knives, we're sanitizing our knives. We're washing our hands, we're rinsing our hands, and we're sanitizing our hands. So just like your food grade. Um, and Jarvis Canada Butcher Supplies is where we've purchased majority of our equipment. And so I just went to their main page for the butcher supplies. So you can see here that there's kind of various pieces of equipment. In kind of the center off to the right there, there's the flat knife scabbard. So this has a little strap and it just hangs right on my hip. And I can pull my knives in and out of there as I need to. The cut resistant gloves are amazing. It's something I definitely recommend when you get into the butchering stage. We use a plastic apron, completely cover ourselves up. So we can take our apron off and now we're clean and ready for the next part of the process. So they literally have everything. So you can see this is in the center right. There's the stainless steel hog groundbles. And so you'll actually see our hogs hanging in the trailer with one of these on one of my later pictures. So yeah, just all of the different equipment that you might need for the butchering and the butchering process. The gentleman who is our British Columbia rep is just an amazing man, super helpful for anybody that's unsure of what equipment they need and what they don't. Uh, he's been wonderful at keeping in connect with me. He has this little trailer or van that he drives around, and he kind of does demos and stuff like that, trade shows. So whenever he's coming through our area, he always texts me and lets me know he's coming. Wants to show me a new product, things like that. So another great partnership as well. Okay, and so then going on, connections and opportunity. So along with the Small Scale Meat Processors Association, we were invited to Spray Creek Ranch in June. And we basically were working with the trailer manufacturer. So we had a great big huge Zoom call with a trailer manufacturer. And there was about 10 different slaughter trailer operators there. We were all sharing techniques, opportunities to collaborate. So that day we slaughtered, I believe, 10 sheep. And each person took their own time showing the way that they do it, showing tips and tricks of easier methods to, for example, separate the skin on a sheep versus and actually pulling that hide off versus cutting that hide off, keeping that hide in a nice shape so that it can be processed later, which is something that we 100% don't do with maybe the hogs, right? Or the cows. We quite often, as First Nations people, will do that with our deer or our moose. We're cutting it off in a really nice way, and we know somebody that's going to use that hide later. So that was a very a process that I really enjoyed. Was really learning how to take care of that hide because that's something I'd like to learn in the future. So the invite to Spray Creek Ranch. So not only did we take some time to go through the slaughter trailer and really like break it down for this manufacturer saying, you know what, I think you should add this here or you should add that there. If we had, a step coming into the trailer, it would be more ergonomic or it would be easier to get things in there. And the manufacturer listened and is now, building new trailers. So maybe if one of you purchase a new trailer, the work that we did that day will help benefit you and the new system that they're designing. So I hope that everybody who wants a copy of this presentation will take it. I invite you to go check out Spray Creek Ranch. They are a link on the Small Scale Processors Association, and they're doing really incredible things with farming, using the land to its best advantage, and really creating a really nice regenerative system. In addition to that, Tristan and his family also have a butcher shop, and a real farm to table process. He and his family are an amazing young family, and they're just like super open to learning, sharing information, yeah, sharing this life that they could do. So connections and opportunity, and we already talked about that. We're all sitting in a room because of a connection to iSpark. And so many people that I've met through iSpark have become friends. And we actually collaborate on all the time on different projects or working on different things. So once again, I just want to say thank you to iSpark for the space today, for the opportunity to collaborate with all of you. So the finished carcass cooling prior to the butchering the next day. So Small Scale Meat Processors Association came to Esdilagh. The first day we did the humane food grade slaughter on these two hogs. I drove this trailer home that night and continued to feed the generator gas all night, so that the refrigerator unit would continue running and we could get these hogs to the ideal temperature so that we were providing that food grade butcher the next day. So I actually had to top up the gas generator twice overnight. And remember my comment earlier that if you have the ability to purchase a diesel generator to go with this, it will run a little bit longer than your gas generator with the same amount of fuel. So just something to think about. You can see here in this picture here. So earlier when we talked about the slaughter trailer, if you remember going back to that main slide where it listed all of the features of the slaughter trailer, you can see here on the roof is this rail. So the rail actually extends right out the door. And so we can put an animal on a rail, or a carcass on a rail, I should say, right off of one of our winches. So there's no manual lifting or anything involved. So what we do is we set up the hog on one of these bar units, and you can see we've got the hog hanging between their hocks. And then we've got it on what they call the trolley or the rail line, and then into that hook. So a few tips that we've found that was shared with me through the Small Scale Processors Association. So we've actually taken some butcher twine and we've tied the hogs to the bar, because I was driving from Esdilagh to Williams Lake to my home and then back to Quesnel the next day. So we want to make sure that those hogs are actually staying upright on the rails. We want to make sure that there's no chance for them slipping off, hitting the floor. This is all part of that food grade slaughter. So on day 2, what did we learn? So we transferred the cooled carcasses to a commercial kitchen in Quesnel. And with the Small Scale Processors team, we learned about all the different cuts. We talked about how we were going to cook the food in the community, and what kind of lessons I wanted to teach out of what we were doing here. So we cut all the meat for the community and for our programs and our luncheons. So we kept the bellies to do a bacon making lesson. We kept the hind end roasts and hocks for curing. And we separated all the trim to create ground pork and sausage ground pork for sausage making later. So this is what the bottom of our freezer looked like when we were done that day. So we had pork chops, we had shoulder roast, we had picnic roast, we had ribs. You can see we saved all the leaf lard. So we're going to um, process that down into some pork lard. We've got all the trim here in the bags on the top left, or sorry, top right. And that was ground down into various types of sausage, breakfast sausage. And then you can see, I don't think you actually can see it in this picture, but because it's not labeled, but the bottom right bag over here is actually the bellies and the or the hind end roasts that we then turn into hams. Um, and so what did we do with all of that product? So time to enjoy our hard work. We made bacon, we made sausage, ribs, pulled pork for the community. So off the top of my head, I think the neatest one of the meals I love serving the most out of what we did here is we do an annual wagon ride and we go across the land for 4 or 5 days before we ride into the Williams Lake Stampede. And our teamster who started the wagon ride, Every Child Matters, in honor of his brother, was retiring from the wagon ride. So we hosted a retirement dinner for him and we barbecued pork chops. The neatest part for me about serving that meal was all the feedback from all the people that were used to the going to the grocery store and buying that perfect medallion pork chop that the meat was white and tasted so much different than this organic pork that we slaughtered and butchered ourselves and we were now cooking for this retirement party. Um, there were so many comments about the flavor, about the texture, and how good it was. So that for me just warmed my heart. Um, in the community, I cook for a monthly luncheon, just a community luncheon, a community gathering. And so we did pulled pork sandwiches that day. And we were fortunate that when we did that, the garden was also producing. So we had like all of these beautiful salads to go with it, potato salad from the garden and coleslaw and green salads. And again, just one of those meals that like speaks right from my heart. It was just absolutely beautiful. We did an Instapot class where we were teaching people how to use their Instapots. And we cooked pork with a mushroom sauce and wild rice. Every time I cook this meal, it brings me back home to Minnesota where we harvest our wild rice. And this was one of the first traditional meals that anybody ever really made for me. Obviously, traditionally, it wasn't made with pork, but we've adapted it. So, and then through that same Instapot class, we also did some ribs in the Instapot. And then, of course, the baking making, the ham making, and the sausages. So, just really not just the butchering, but providing kind of more lessons about curing and moving forward from there, and showing our community how easy it actually is to process your food, and how pure the food tastes. You know, when we're making our bacon, we're not using nitrates in it. It's the same thing with our sausages. We're using like herbs, and it just makes a beautiful product that's healthier and for both you and your body. Um, yeah, that's the end of my presentation today. I hope I didn't go too fast and lose you all. Like I said before, tech is not my forte. I prefer to stay out of my office. So, just with that being said, when you're emailing me, allow 2 to 5 business days for me to get back to you because I don't always go to my office and don't always have access to my email. But anybody that would like to stay connected, I'm happy to stay connected. I'm happy to provide information or recommendations, talk with you about your project. Just yeah, reach out. Thank you for having me today. And yeah, I'll take any questions now.